Hey friends, welcome back to Acre Homestead. My name is Becky and today we're going to do a full garden tour. I've actually been out of town for the last 2 weeks and it's been a day and a half since I've been home and I haven't gone out into the garden yet. And the reason is because yesterday I was having all this wood delivered and I didn't have time to go film a garden tour video with you, and I wanted to make sure you guys were with me when I was out in the garden for the first time after being gone for so long. I'm a little nervous to go out there. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of stuff. August is probably the worst time as a gardener to leave, especially where I live, because I live in the Pacific Northwest. I live in Southwest Washington in Zone 8B. I'm about 10 minutes north of Portland, Oregon. And right now is when the big harvest comes in, but it was a family vacation and that's when it was planned, so that's when we went. So I'm definitely nervous to see what's doing really well and what might not be doing so great out there. But I was able to get a bunch of delivery of wood yesterday, and we heat our house with wood. Last year was our first year heating our house exclusively with wood, and we absolutely love it. And I was able to find an excellent deal on some maple and birch, and when it's available, and it hasn't rained here, it hasn't rained since March, and it's August 22nd today. So that's what day we're going out to look at the garden. Sorry if it's a little bit windy. And then it rained all morning today, so I couldn't come out here and film until now. It's about 3 o'clock now, and I've been waiting and waiting to see what is going on in the garden. I can already see there's some red popping out, which means ripe tomatoes. And oh, well, I can already see something that's broken, so let me flip you around and show you. Do you see that right there? This is one of my tomato cages, and it looks like it completely fell off this cattle panel here. So that is one thing. So let's take a look and see how it's doing. Well, it looks like the plants are doing okay. It didn't crush any of the vines themselves, so that's good. So I wonder if I can just take this and prop it back like, let's see. Well, this is probably not ideal, but all I did was take it and prop it back on these T-posts, and what I'm going to do is secure it here. So now I know next year I need to do a much better job securing those. I just used zip ties to secure these, and clearly zip ties were not enough to secure these. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the year here is I'm going to use maybe some wire to secure this just so it doesn't keep flopping over. But I don't think we lost any plants, just kind of disappointing because now that kind of looks a little janky. But I see a lot of really nice ripe tomatoes in here. These are the Indigo Rose, and they don't feel like they're quite ready. I've never grown these before, so I don't know when they're ready. I think the bottoms need to turn a little bit red actually before these are ready. And look, there's a tomato on the ground, so I need to harvest that. We have some Roma tomatoes. We have a ton of these orange cherry tomatoes. Look how beautiful. So many of these. I'm going to bring these inside today and dehydrate them. This one could be propped up a little bit. Look at all these beautiful tomatoes in here. Look at the size of this Dr. Witchy's tomato. This one is ready to be harvested. And it looks like I have 2 Black Prince tomatoes that are ready to be harvested here. This is an heirloom variety. Coming from my tomato cages, I don't know if I've showed this volunteer squash plant, but I finally get to figure out what kind of variety it is. I think it's some sort of acorn squash, which I didn't plant any acorn squash, so I'm not sure where this came from, but I'm kind of happy to see that. And from that squash plant, let's talk about this bean trellis, which you guys know I love my bean trellis, but because I was gone when I should have been harvesting these are way too ripe to harvest these beans. Well, these ones actually don't look too bad, but a bunch of the ones that are hanging up in here, you can see how they're bulging. These are too late to eat as green beans. So what I'm gonna do is I've decided that these dragon tongue beans, that's what these are, I'm gonna use these as dried beans. I'm gonna let them grow to maturity. I'm gonna let them dry out on this vine, and then I'm gonna shell them. And when I look at the bean, I just got distracted by my loofah plant. So this loofah plant, I don't know if you guys remember, but it hasn't done anything this whole time. And now it's snaked all the way up underneath my fig tree and is starting to grow up my fig tree, which it probably doesn't like because there's too much shade because of this fig tree. So what I need to do later today is come out and take that loofah and try to get it to grow up this trellis. It's probably way too late for those loofahs to mature into anything, but I want to try to give it a chance. When you look at dragon tongue beans when they're in their dry form, when you're planting them, they kind of look like a pinto bean. I'm gonna let them dry on the vine and then I'll shell them and we'll eat them like pinto beans. I don't know if they'll be any good, but they're definitely not good to eat as green beans. They're gonna be really woody and tough. So I think that that is a good idea. And then I'll save some and I'll plant them next year. But my husband and I were talking, and going on vacation for 2 weeks in August is probably not something we're gonna do next year because it's just not the best time when you're a gardener to go on vacation. And then right behind me here is where my fig tree is, and this is where the loofahs are trying to grow up, and my fig tree is loaded with figs. There are hundreds and probably thousands of figs growing on this tree, and I'm gonna bring you a ton of yummy fig recipes. I do need to prune this fig tree back next year because it's just gotten way too big. The fig tree goes from here all the way up to over here. And it's probably gotten 25% bigger since we bought this house 2 years ago. And I just need to prune it back because it's starting to encroach into the garden and it's starting to get way too tall to even harvest up there. If you guys have any resources for me on how to prune figs, any videos or any articles or anything like that, could you leave the link down in the description box below? I'd greatly appreciate that because I don't know anything about figs. One huge new development in the garden that is in here since last time you guys were in the garden is, do you guys see this black piping that's everywhere? That's along this tomato bed, it's on the green bean bed, this white piping that runs all the way down to that tomato trellis that's in the walkway, and then this black piping right here that runs along the straw bale bed garden. Well, that is an irrigation system that my husband put in for me while I was gone. Now, he was gone for part of the time I was gone, but I was gone way longer, and he decided to go ahead and irrigate a couple of these areas that were not already on my irrigation system. Since our teenage neighbor was going to be taking care of the garden and this area was not on irrigation, he wanted to make sure that everything survived, and I am so grateful that he took the time to do that. That was not anything I asked him to do, but he knew that he wanted to guarantee that my garden was going to survive while I was gone, and that was just one way to guarantee it. Hopefully a little bit better is by putting in something he can control on his phone on how much water these plants were getting. Now, he still needs to trench all of this and put it down in the ground, but he didn't have time to do that before he had to leave to be in Montana as well. So he got it all laid out where it needs to be, but he will eventually dig it and put it into the ground. And he did agree to do a video with me where we're gonna show you how he does our irrigation system. We can control it both with our phone and it works really beautiful. So you can see all this irrigation piping that's running along the straw bale bed. Now this is the sweet potato bed and it's not doing super great. I wish that these were 3 times the size that they are. I don't know if I'm actually gonna get any sweet potatoes out of this bed, but it's definitely been a fun experiment. And then I have all this terrible grass that weeds I have to pull. I don't know what kind of grass this is. It's a weed, but it's terrible. Oh! Well, just forget what I just said. That's a sweet potato there. I'm gonna put that right back there. Oops. Okay, so maybe there are sweet potatoes growing in there. Probably not with this little tiny one, but this was one that I got my money back because these looked really bad when I got them. I'm gonna take this winter to research straw bale gardening because I definitely want to have this as part of my garden to increase my garden space, but I need to learn more about how to do it. This was literally straw bales. I put sweet potato slips in, and I think there's more to it than that. So stay tuned next year. Hopefully this will do better. Right here is where I had all of my potatoes in my no-dig roost out method. If you want to know how that experiment turned out, I have a whole video up there. You can go ahead and watch it, and I'll leave it down in the description box. But all these potatoes have been dug up, and I'm going to use this area as my compost in place. Anything that comes out that can be composted, I'm just going to start putting on here. This is my no-dig compost in place potato bed. Potato bed here. Now we're going to come back into one of the other tomato beds over here, where I have some carrots growing in between here. I'm sure I need to come through and harvest all those carrots. It looks like there's definitely things starting to turn colors. I have some banana peels here I just compost in place. The experiment where I threw all the onion tops are actually starting to break down, so that's pretty exciting. I need to obviously come tie this tomato plant up, but it definitely looks like there's some beautiful tomatoes in here that are ready to be harvested. And I do have my Berries Crazy Cherry tomato plant in here. Let's take a look at this together because I haven't looked at this since last time you guys were in the garden with me. So there are some pretty big clusters in here. They're not quite as big as I would have assumed they were going to be. I don't know if that's because of a nutrient issue or whatever, but it looks like there's, let's see. Oh, yep, that one's right. I got a few down here that can be picked. So overall, I'm happy with this, but I think that from the pictures I've seen online, these could be bigger clusters. Here's some beautiful tomatoes that are ready. From this tomato bed, I have my pepper bed, and I can already see there are some huge peppers in here. way better peppers than I grew last year. And there's even some red ones. I have never, oops, well, I'm gonna have to eat that one soon. I've never grown red peppers before. And there's even a red bell pepper. Oh, I guess it's a little green. That is incredible. I did plant some cilantro down here, and when I had left, none of it had come up yet, so that's pretty happy. And I've got some basil here that needs to be harvested. Lots of basil. I have tons of poblano peppers in here. Look how gorgeous. And also there's carrots in here. Let's pull one up together. Oh my goodness, look at that thing. So there's carrots that I planted all around these peppers. And so I think this week I'm gonna come out and harvest all the carrots around the pepper plants. And then I have a ton of cayenne peppers that are red. I'm gonna make a hot sauce out of these peppers. So this week I'm gonna have to come out and harvest all these peppers, and we're gonna make a hot sauce together. So this is definitely the best peppers I've ever grown, and I'm super happy about it. I see all this basil that needs to be harvested, so I just can't help myself but pick it while I'm out here. We're definitely gonna be having some tomatoes and basil something for dinner tonight. I don't know what, but I'm really happy about the idea. Oh, and look, I have a ton of jalapenos here. I've never grown jalapenos either. Last year my jalapeno plants did nothing. Look at all these green cayennes in here and carrots. Look at that carrot. These are bolero carrots. Yeah, I gotta get all these carrots out of here. That will give more room for the peppers to grow. Look at how beautiful these carrots are. Coming around, it looks like my calendula is done. So I'm probably gonna come out here and harvest some of these seeds, and we will save them for next year. Calendula are really easy to harvest the seeds, but I need to get this plant out of here because it has seen better days. It looks like the onion experiment. These are the Dollar Tree onions that I planted that were supposed to be green onions. I need to get these out because it looks like they are starting to show signs that they are ready to come out. So we'll harvest those another day, and I'll freeze all of those. Now, coming from that pepper bed, I want to show you this. Now this I haven't seen, you guys, since last time I was out here with you. And look how things have exploded. Now there's a ton of weeds in here, tons of weeds. This is my fall garden. And clearly the weeds took advantage of me being gone because there's a bunch of them. But this here is cauliflower, and it is quadrupled the size since last time I was in here. This is a Swiss chard that didn't even sprout last time I was out here, and look how beautiful it is. I have cabbages all in here. That's what this is too, cabbage. And then I have a ton of broccoli. I cannot believe this broccoli right here. This is way better than the broccoli when I started from starts that I planted over there. These are just jamming. They're huge. I can't believe how beautiful this broccoli looks. I'm so excited about this fall planting. And look at these cabbages. These cabbages are way healthier looking than the ones I started this spring that I planted out as starts. And my tomato trellis that my husband put the irrigation system looks like it's doing really well. Now these peas did die. I will just harvest these peas as pea seeds and we'll plant them next year. And I'm totally happy to do that. Now this is another planting of carrots I did that looks like, let's see if these are ready. Well, those don't want to come up. Well, these carrots are stuck in here, so I'm gonna have to come out here with a shovel, I think. I don't know why these ones don't want to come up and they keep breaking at the leaves. So we have carrots, leeks that I need to harvest and deal with because they've gone to seed. My fall planting of spinach looks like it's bolted, but I certainly could come out here. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Look at this pumpkin. We'll get back to these pumpkins, but let's finish this bed. This bed, I have some more cauliflower. That's what these plants are. And last time I was out here, these had barely just sprouted. And I do need to come out here and weed some, but they are looking really good. But look at these cabbages. This is a Chinese cabbage I planted. And when I was out here 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, they were this big. So this is amazing. My fall planting of my brassicas, so like those cauliflowers and cabbages and broccolis, and this cabbage here are doing so much better than the stuff I planted in the spring. So now this is making me think maybe direct seeding these things is better than doing transplants. Have you guys had experience with that? Have you had better experience with direct seeding as opposed to transplants? I did plant a variety of dwarf peas here that I did not trellis because they weren't supposed to get more than 24 inches tall. They already look like they are, but I'm gonna let them just be. Now coming around here, this is my sweet potato bed and it has blown up since last time I was in here. This was a volunteer squash plant and it already has 4 spaghetti squashes on it and they are doing really well. So I'm excited about the progress on that. Coming around here, look at how big these cucumbers are. Holy cow. That is probably 2.5 feet long. I don't know if that's any good to eat. I've got a bunch of them in here. We need to harvest. So this one is clearly not good to eat anymore. This is probably 2.5 feet tall and these ones are not good. That one might be good. These 3 might be good. I'm gonna cut into them to see how they taste. But these ones, since they've started to turn yellow, are gonna go to the chickens. So I just grew some chicken food. Now this is an okay bed. I really gotta get out here and harvest this red cabbage. This got burnt. Oh, see, that might be bad. I might not be able to harvest this. I've got a couple that look okay that I can come out and harvest and probably remove the outer leaves. I've got some carrots in here that actually look like they're doing pretty well. I kind of just planted carrots anywhere I had some open space. This is Swiss chard that looks like it has seen better days. I have a volunteer tomato plant. I'm gonna pull that actually. But you can see this Swiss chard in here. Oh, there's a potato plant. Just doesn't look super healthy. I'm not sure why. So yeah, like this looks dead. Some sort of bug or something got into that. I'm not sure what happened there, but that has seen better days. And then I just, look at this. This is a volunteer squash plant. It is way too late for anything to happen with this. There's some aphids on it, I can see right there. So I should really just pull this out. This plant here, I have no idea what this is. This almost looks like a cauliflower, but I did not plant this cauliflower here. And I don't remember this being here when I left, but I can't imagine it grew in the time I wasn't here. So I might leave that one. I'm just gonna be real here. This bed is a mess. Between the red cabbage that's rotting, the Swiss chard that's not doing well, these green cabbages that didn't do really well, these are the ones I planted. We have some volunteer tomato here as well. I have my kale that is going to seed. That's what these are, I guess. I've never seen kale go to seed before. Just messy stuff in here. Now, in between all of these kale plants, right in here, I have black beans. And I'm just gonna let these do their thing. That was an experiment. Oh, this plant actually looks pretty good. I could probably harvest a bunch of kale off there. But it looks like I need to address, oh, yuck. Some aphid-ish, oh, yuck. Yeah, look at that. That is not good. That's aphids. Soapy water takes care of aphids, no problem. But I think I'm gonna give this leaf, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, yuck. Ah, I just touched it. Okay, yeah. That is gonna be a good snack for the chickens. But I can save this plant from aphids. I just need to come out and spray some soapy water on it. So that bed kind of is a flop. There's still some food in there I can harvest, but what I need to do is come in here, clean this whole area up, get a bunch of that stuff out of here, preserve what I can preserve with the cabbage that's left, and then plant some more fall stuff. So we'll do that in a different video. So coming here, this is my strawberry asparagus bed. This is done for the year. It has a ton of runners, so I need to take care of those. What I think I'm gonna do is actually take a ton of these strawberry runners and put them in that bed back there. That bed only grew weeds. All that green you see over there is weeds and it looks terrible. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take all these runners and put them in there and we'll have another strawberry bed. From the strawberry asparagus bed, we have our kale bed for the chickens and that's doing really well. I'm gonna come out here this week and do a huge harvesting on that. This experiment has been working wonderfully. I'm thrilled with the results here. I can show you over here. This is the most embarrassing bed here. Now randomly, I do have peas growing in here. I'm not sure how peas started growing in here, but I have peas amongst a bunch of weeds. These are all weeds like really need to come up. That is a perfect chicken snack. I'll give this to the chickens. I'm kind of doing some composting in place. Here's some chicken compost that I have here. Here is all the scraps from the corn that I harvested, and that is all the garlic over there. And it seems to be working. But it's kind of unacceptable to me to have one full bed that didn't produce any food for me except weeds to feed the chickens. So next year, this is gonna be a big priority to figure out what can grow in this bed. And I just think strawberries is a good idea. Now from the back bed, we've got this bed here. This bed has sweet potatoes on this side, and I am shocked that the sweet potatoes are actually growing on this bed. This area doesn't get a ton of sun, so that the fact that the sweet potatoes look just as good as they do in that other bed over there means that I'm probably gonna plant this whole bed in sweet potatoes next year, and I'm pretty happy about that idea. And then I have green beans in here, and these are probably pretty close to being done. There are some that are way overripe in here. I've already gotten so many green beans. I might just pull these out and plant something different in here. At the end of this bed, I did plant some red cabbage, and they just never grew, and I'm just not super happy with them. Over here, we've got some dragon tongue beans. I need to come out and harvest these. These are still really good. The one cool thing about dragon tongue beans, when they get big like this, they actually don't get really woody like a green bean does. And so they're a lot more forgiving if you miss harvesting them. So I'm gonna harvest these tomorrow. The celery definitely needs to be harvested. That's coming out this week for sure. I have my Brussels sprouts here. These are 5 times the size of the Brussels sprouts I grew last year. And so I'm hoping that I get Brussels sprouts this year. I do see some aphids on here. So when I take care of the aphids on the cabbages, I'm gonna go ahead and take care of the aphids in here. I've got some beets in here that definitely need to be harvested as soon as possible. We had some 106-degree days when I was on vacation, so I think that's what burnt some of these beet leaves. Parsley looks great. Coming around here, looks like I have some more peas that have gone to seed, so I'll harvest those for seed. We have more green beans that need to come out. These are done. This whole section here are my black beans, and it looks like they are starting to die back, which is pretty awesome. So we're gonna be harvesting some black beans out of these. My zinnia seems to have fallen over, and that's interesting because it's growing these side shoots straight up like that. So we'll see if those flower. Coming around, you guys, back to these pumpkins. Look how big these pumpkins are. These here are jack-o'-lantern pumpkins here and there. I have a Cinderella pumpkin here, and look what little guy's in there. That is a butternut squash. And in here, it looks like I need to harvest those pretty soon. I'm gonna decorate with those. Those are jackbeet little pumpkins. Tons of butternut squash. Oh my gosh. You guys, is this a sunflower? I think this is a sunflower. I had some teddy bear sunflowers planted in this bed last year, and it did go to seed. So I wonder if I have a little sunflower here. That would be awesome because I didn't ever get around to plant sunflowers. From there, it looks like, of course, there are going to be a ton of zucchinis to harvest. As I was picking those zucchinis, look what I see there. There's another jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. And do you see all the orange in here? Another pumpkin, pumpkin. Look at the size of this one. This is a Cinderella pumpkin, and she is beautiful. There's another one there. I had 2 squash beds. This bed here was mostly winter squash, and that is where we're seeing a lot of the Cinderella pumpkins, the jackbeet little pumpkins, and my jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. But if we come from there to over here is where I have most of my zucchini plants. I did have one over there that I just picked a bunch from, but I have my yellow zucchini. And one thing I've noticed with my yellow zucchini, this is the early prolific yellow squash, I should say, from M.I. Gardner. And I had a terrible time with pollination with this one. Along with this one, this is what happened. They wouldn't fully pollinate, and then they would rot at the end. So I don't know if I'm gonna grow this variety next year because the production has been really poor. I did just pick this one off that one, but I have a ton of zucchinis in here. I'm gonna take just a second to harvest all of them. But before I do that, I wanna try to make my way in here. But I wanted to show you the size of this pumpkin. It's massive. I cannot wait to weigh these things. So in here, I have tons of spaghetti squash. There's probably like 8 or 9 just growing in this path here. That was my goal, was to have the squash kind of grow out into these paths, which has worked perfectly. Here's another Cinderella pumpkin. I thought the corn harvest was gonna be a complete flop, but actually I think I'm probably gonna get 30 heads of corn off here, which is perfect because I already purchased 45. That probably will be enough corn to get us through the year. I think my biggest problem was germination. If I had gotten more of my corn to germinate, I would have been able to grow a lot more corn, because the corn that germinated is doing really well. And I did not water this area at all. This has only been watered from natural rain, and we've probably only had, I think today, and maybe one other day since March where there's been any rain. And so I'm definitely gonna grow this variety of corn again, but I'm going to try to do a better job with getting my corn to germinate. And I do have a few ideas on how to do that. From the squash bed, there's the pepper bed that's doing pretty well in here. Not quite as prolific on the peppers as the other bed, but there's definitely a ton in here that I'm gonna be able to harvest this week. Oh my gosh, actually, look at the size of those bell peppers. Those are beautiful. These are California Wonder Bells, and I take that back. I'm really happy with that. Another volunteer tomato plant. I have tons of herbs in here that need to be harvested. This is lemon, basil, and salt, and parsley. From that pepper bed, we have these volunteer tomato plants. These were volunteers. I'm not doing anything with them. I'm not watering them or anything. And there are quite a few green tomatoes on here. There's actually a ton of them now that I kind of pull in here and can see. So that'll be fun to see what happens with those. My tomatillos. All right, these are ready to harvest. I think these are ready. Probably more than ready. Oh, shoot. That's not good. Oh! That one's going to the chickens because there's tons of bugs in it. Hopefully not this one too. No, this one looks good. Oh yeah. There are a lot in here that are ready. I've never grown these before. So where are my tomatillos? They're right here on this trellis here, and I have two. I have one here and here, and I think I have like 10 tomato plants on here. And my husband was so sweet. When I left, he wanted to irrigate the areas that were not being irrigated, and he didn't know that I had tomato plants here. He does watch my garden tour videos, but for some reason he just missed that there were tomato plants and tomatillo plants here. And these tomato plants, these ones have been doing the best. They're the ones that got me my first 2 big tomato slicers right before I left. And I thought I was gonna come home to dead tomatoes and tomatillos. He forgot to ask our neighbor who was watching our homestead while we were gone to water this. So for probably almost 16 days, these did not have water until today. And we did have, like I mentioned, a 106-degree day. And these tomatoes still are doing better than the other tomatoes. All year long, these tomatoes have been doing better than the tomatoes I planted over here. I'm not sure why, but I'm just grateful that I came home to thriving tomato plants over there. My last bed here is doing really well. I do have some volunteer tomatoes in here, and these carrots need to come out. I'm gonna harvest them this week. And then I need to harvest some of these tomatoes. These are volunteer tomatoes. Before I left, I tried to prop them up just a little bit off the ground, but you can see it didn't totally work, but I think they're still gonna produce pretty nice tomatoes for me. Another thing we forgot to ask our neighbor to do is water my herb barrels. And so these were nasturtiums. They completely died. I had a ton of basil in here. They completely died. My chives, if I water them, they'll come back, I think. But I need to clean this up and make this look more appealing, because right now it looks very sad. We're done with the main garden and the raised beds, but one thing I'm super excited for is my orchard. My pears are basically ready to harvest. I'm gonna come out here this week and harvest them. My Asian pears, look how beautiful. They're just loaded in here. There are hundreds of Asian pears in here that need to be harvested and preserved. This apple tree is looking beautiful. These are ready to be harvested, so this week I'm gonna come out here and harvest these apples. Look how stunning they are. Along with these ones over here. I mean, just look at all these apples on this tree. I do have some apples that have fallen on the ground and then some split. This is when we had the 115-degree days. These will go to the chickens, but other than that, just stunning. I mean, look at all those apples over there. Can you see all that? I think that the harvest from this year's orchard is going to be super prolific, and I'm just thrilled. I cannot wait to get out here along with you guys and harvest a bunch of these apples, and we're going to turn them into all sorts of yummy goodies. And I still like this whole area back here is so embarrassing, and I cannot wait till I can burn all this and get this cleaned back up and looking nice. Now this plum tree, we've had quite the saga with this plum tree, haven't we? Now there are definitely plums on here that I can harvest, and we are going to make plum sauce together. But I still am worried that this tree is not going to come back. We've done a bunch of research and we don't really know what happened to it. So we're crossing our fingers to see if this tree will come back. We cut probably a third of the tree off, the stuff that was really dead. That's what's right here that we need to burn. But the rest of it just looks like it's struggling. And now I don't know if this is struggling because of that heat we've been having, because I can definitely tell around my area because it's been so hot and so dry that maybe it's just the heat that has affected the rest of this and we got the disease off, but I'm not sure. This will be something that we'll have to figure out next year probably if this tree is going to survive. So I'm pretty disappointed about this. I'm glad that there's some fruit that we're going to be able to harvest. It's actually probably more fruit this year than we got to harvest last year, but time will only tell if that tree is going to survive the following years. I think overall, for being gone out of my garden for a little over 2 weeks, things look pretty good. There are some mishaps, like my trellis fell over and things got overgrown a little bit of overgrown zucchini, but that's okay. Those will not go to waste. I still like those overgrown zucchini, believe it or not. I have a lot more harvesting ahead of me, a lot more work ahead of me, but this is where the fun begins. This is where we get to bring all this stuff inside, the fruits of our labor, literally, no pun intended. We put a lot of work into this garden and now we get to start bringing it out. And actually the hard work actually begins now, is the preservation part. But this is the fun part where we get to turn this stuff into amazing, delicious things to eat. And I'm excited to bring with you guys all these beautiful recipes that we're gonna be making together with a ton of this really fun produce. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in my garden. I greatly appreciate every single one of you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me in my garden. And it was super fun to finally get out here. It had been way too long since I've been in this garden. And I'm just grateful that I got to spend the first time in this garden in almost 2.5 weeks with you guys. So if you guys are new around here, consider subscribing. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to actually see where I keep all my recipes, go over to scratchpantry.com. I'll leave the link down in the description box. That is where I have my blog that I keep all my recipes. I add to that constantly. And so if you want to check those out, you can go over there. If you're new, consider subscribing, or if you want to watch a few of my other videos that I have out, I have some right here. I hope your guys' gardens are abundant. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.